My name is Eleanor Hayes. I am 78 years old, a retired schoolteacher who spent her entire life raising my only son, Daniel, after his father died in a car accident when Daniel was just 5. I poured everything I had into him, my love, my savings, my soul. Little did I know that the boy I nurtured with my whole heart would one day lock me in an attic, leaving me to starve, just so he could take everything I owned. The night it happened, I remember the rain pounding hard on the roof. Daniel had asked me to come upstairs, saying there was a leak he needed me to check because, "You know this old house better than anyone, Mom." His voice was calm, but there was something cold in his eyes I couldn't ignore. The attic door creaked as I stepped inside, and before I could turn around, I heard the click of a lock behind me. I pounded on the door, calling out his name. "Daniel, what's going on?" His footsteps faded down the stairs. He never answered. Hours turned into days. The only light came from a small dusty window, and the only sound was the occasional rat scurrying across the floorboards. I searched every corner, my hands trembling, my body weakening with hunger and thirst. I screamed until my voice broke. Why would my own son do this to me? Why? On the third day, I overheard voices through the floorboards. Daniel and his wife, Kelly, laughing downstairs. "Once she's gone," Kelly said, "we'll finally get the house and everything in her will." My heart shattered into pieces. They were planning to let me die up here like an unwanted pet. My legs gave out, and I collapsed on the dusty floor, tears soaking into the wood. But they underestimated me. I wasn't ready to die. Not like this. Not at the hands of the son I gave everything to. I crawled toward the window, my frail hands shaking as I tried to force it open. The old frame groaned, but it wouldn't budge. I needed a plan. I needed strength. I needed time. Every night I whispered to myself, "Eleanor, you've survived worse. You can survive this." Then on the 5th night a storm broke out. The wind howled, rattling the window frame so violently that a piece of it cracked. My heart raced. This was my chance. I gathered every bit of strength left in my body, pushed with all I had, and the window finally gave way, opening to the roaring storm outside. But there was still one problem. I was 3 stories up. One wrong move, and I'd break every bone in my body. As lightning lit up the sky, I tied together old sheets I found in a box, knotting them with trembling fingers. Each knot felt like a prayer. I secured one end to a beam and dangled the makeshift rope out the window. My body screamed in pain as I swung my legs out, gripping the sheets like my life depended on it. Because it did. The wind whipped my hair, the rain blinded my eyes, and my heart hammered against my chest. Halfway down, the sheet tore with a sickening rip. I screamed, clinging desperately as threads snapped under my weight. Below me, the ground looked like a dark abyss. And then, the sheet completely gave way. Fell. But instead of hitting the ground, something or someone broke my fall. When I opened my eyes, dazed and shaking, I saw the shocked face of the last person I ever expected to see at that hour. Who was it? And would they save me, or hand me back to Daniel? To be continued in the next chapter. Trust is the most fragile gift we give. Sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest. Never let anyone take away your will to fight back. If you want to know how Eleanor fights back and takes everything from those who betrayed her, stay tuned for the next chapter. Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. When my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I realized it was Mr. Harris, my old neighbor from 2 houses down. He was a retired firefighter, still strong despite his age. "Eleanor, what on earth?" he gasped, holding me tightly as I trembled in his arms. The rain drenched us both, but at that moment he was my angel. Daniel locked me in the attic," I whispered, my voice hoarse from days without water. His jaw tightened, and without asking more questions, he carried me to his truck parked by the curb. I heard my son's voice shouting from the house, "Mom, where are you?" But Harris didn't stop. He slammed the door, started the engine, and we sped away into the night. My body was frail, but my mind burned with rage. Daniel had just lost his mother forever. Not because I died, but because he killed every ounce of love I ever had for him. At the hospital, doctors rushed to put me on 4 fluids. They said I was severely dehydrated and malnourished. But as I lay there regaining my strength, I swore to myself, I would not just survive. I would take everything back. Mr. Harris visited me every day, bringing small meals and keeping me company. "You can't go back to that house, Eleanor," he said. "He'll try again." He nodded. He was right. Daniel thought I was weak, a helpless old woman. But he didn't know that I still held the power of my estate in my name. Every deed, every account, every legal document was still under my control. A few days later, I made a call to my lawyer, Mrs. Whitman. Her voice trembled when she heard my story. "Eleanor, this is attempted murder," she said firmly. "We need to take legal action immediately. Do not contact your son. Do not warn him. Let's build this case." As she spoke, I felt a surge of energy. For the first time since that attic door slammed shut, I felt hope. I agreed to meet her at her office, where she laid out a plan, not only to press charges against Daniel but also to transfer my assets into a protected trust that he could never touch. The law was on my side and so was time. While I worked quietly with my lawyer, Daniel and Kelly assumed I had disappeared. They didn't report me missing, of course. They were too busy celebrating my absence as they started spending my money recklessly, forging my checks and flaunting their new lifestyle. My lawyer gathered every bank statement and credit record they left behind like breadcrumbs. Each transaction was another nail in their coffin. Meanwhile, I stayed with Mr. Harris, who watched over me like a guardian. One night, as we sipped tea, I asked him, "Do you think I'm strong enough to fight them?" He looked me straight in the eye and said, "Eleanor, strength isn't about muscles. It's about refusing to let evil win. And you, my dear, have that strength." Those words lit a fire in my soul. I began to regain my health, walking every morning, eating well, and slowly becoming the Eleanor I used to be. Only this time, stronger and angrier. Then came the day I returned to my house. Not to live, but to take back what was mine. I arrived with my lawyer and the police. Daniel opened the door. His face pale when he saw me standing there alive, stronger than ever. "Mom, I thought you were dead." I cut him off, my voice steady. "You thought wrong." The officers stepped forward, reading him his rights as they handcuffed him. Kelly screamed, demanding to know what was happening. But I didn't flinch. I watched as they dragged them both out of the house I had built with my bare hands. For a brief moment, I almost felt pity for the boy I once loved. But then I remembered the attic, the hunger, the darkness, the betrayal. My pity turned to steel. As the police car drove away, I stood on the porch of my home. For the first time in weeks, I breathed deeply, the air tasting of freedom. But this was only the beginning. They had tried to take everything from me, and now I would take everything from them. Legally, completely, and without mercy. Because when a mother's love dies, something far more powerful is born. The next day, as I met with my lawyer to finalize the transfer of my assets, an unexpected visitor walked into her office. Someone who held a secret that could either destroy my entire plan or make it even stronger. Who was this person? And what shocking truth were they about to reveal to me? To be continued in the next chapter. Evil may try to trap you in the darkest corners, but as long as you have breath, you have power. Never underestimate the strength that comes from survival. Things are just getting started. You won't believe who shows up next and how Eleanor turns the tables completely. Stay tuned for the next chapter. Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next shocking twist. The door opened slowly, and in walked a woman I hadn't seen in over 20 years. My late husband's sister, Caroline. She was tall, elegant despite her age, with the same piercing blue eyes my husband once had. My heart skipped a beat. "Caroline," I whispered. She gave me a tight smile. "It's been a long time, Eleanor," she said softly, but there was an urgency in her tone. "I heard about Daniel. I heard what he did to you. My throat tightened as memories of family gatherings from decades ago flashed through my mind. Caroline had always been distant, almost mysterious, but now she stood before me as if she carried the weight of 1,000 secrets. My lawyer, Mrs. Whitman, gestured for her to sit. Caroline leaned forward, her eyes locking onto mine. "Eleanor, I came here because there's something you don't know. Something about your fortune, about Daniel, and about the house." My heart pounded. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice trembling. Caroline took a deep breath. "Your husband, before he died, he changed his will. He left me as a silent trustee for your estate, just in case something happened to you. Daniel has been trying to forge documents for years to gain access to everything. That's why he tried to get rid of you, because he discovered he could never touch your assets while you were alive." Mrs. Whitman's eyes widened, and she quickly pulled out the current trust papers. Everything Caroline said checked out. My late husband had seen this coming. He had left a safety net I never knew existed. For the first time, I felt his presence, like he was guiding me through this storm even from beyond the grave. Caroline leaned closer, her voice almost a whisper. "There's more. Daniel has a secret account overseas where he's been hiding stolen funds. Money he's been siphoning from your accounts for years." I clenched my fists. Every nerve in my body burned with fury. "We'll find it," Mrs. Whitman said, her voice sharp. "And we'll take it all back." That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Caroline's words. My son had not only tried to kill me. He had been stealing from me long before this. I thought of all the times I bailed him out of debt, paid for his failed businesses, even covered for his lies. Every sacrifice I had made had been thrown back in my face. But now the tables had turned. The next morning, Mrs. Whitman filed emergency court orders to freeze all of Daniel's known assets. We also hired a private investigator to track down the offshore accounts Caroline mentioned. Within days, evidence piled up: fraud, embezzlement, forgery. Daniel was in deeper trouble than he ever imagined. Meanwhile, Kelly tried to plead with me, showing up at the courthouse crying crocodile tears. "Please, Eleanor, think of your grandson," she sobbed. My chest ached at the mention of the little boy, innocent in all of this. But I had to stay strong. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "You thought you could break me. You thought wrong." As the legal battle escalated, something unexpected happened. Daniel from jail sent me a letter. I hesitated before opening it, my hands shaking. Inside, his handwriting was scrawled and uneven. "Mom, I'm sorry. I never meant for things to go that far. I just needed money. Please drop the charges. Please don't take everything from me. I'm still your son." Tears filled my eyes, but they weren't tears of forgiveness. They were tears of finality. I realized in that moment that my son was no longer the boy I raised. He was a stranger consumed by greed. The court hearing was set for the following week. The entire town buzzed with whispers about what Daniel had done. I walked into that courtroom not as a victim, but as a survivor. Caroline stood by my side, Mrs. Whitman armed with evidence, and Mr. Harris sitting in the gallery cheering me on quietly. Daniel was brought in, his head hanging low. For a brief second our eyes met. There was no love left, only a cold recognition of what he had become. The judge listened as the evidence was laid out: fraud, theft, attempted murder. Each word struck Daniel like a hammer. Then, just when victory seemed certain, Daniel's lawyer stood up and made a shocking statement. "Your Honor, my client claims that his mother is hiding something too, something that could change the entire case." Gasps filled the courtroom. My heart stopped. What secret was Daniel about to reveal? Was it a desperate lie, or a truth I had long buried? The judge leaned forward. "Proceed," he said. Daniel looked straight at me, a wicked smile forming on his face. "Tell them, Mom. Tell them what you did." My knees weakened. What was he talking about? The courtroom fell silent, everyone waiting for the bombshell to drop. To be continued in the next chapter. Even in the face of betrayal, truth and perseverance shine brighter than any lie. But sometimes the past has shadows we thought were buried. What is the shocking secret Daniel is about to expose? Will Eleanor's case crumble, or will she rise even higher? Don't miss the next chapter. Like, comment, and subscribe so you'll be the first to know what happens next. The courtroom's silence was suffocating. Daniel's smirk widened as he leaned forward. His voice low but clear. Tell them, Mom, about the money you've been hiding. The money Dad left that was never declared. Tell them how you've been keeping it a secret all these years. A wave of murmurs rippled through the room. My stomach twisted into knots. My late husband had indeed left me a hidden account, one he told me to keep safe in case of emergencies. It wasn't illegal. It was simply private. But in the wrong hands, Daniel's accusation could twist it into something sinister. I stood up, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. Yes, Your Honor, my husband left me a private fund. It was not stolen, nor was it hidden illegally. It was my security, my safety net, because he knew one day someone might try to take everything from me. And here we are. Gasps filled the courtroom again. The judge raised an eyebrow, but Mrs. Whitman quickly presented the documentation proving the legality of the account. The tension broke slightly as the judge nodded, unimpressed with Daniel's desperate attempt to deflect blame. Daniel's smirk faded. He had tried to use my own protection against me, but it backfired. Still, I could see in his eyes that he wasn't done fighting dirty. The hearing continued for hours, every detail of Daniel's betrayal laid bare for the court to see. Evidence of forged checks, stolen funds, and even witness statements from Kelly's own family painted the truth. Kelly, sitting behind Daniel, looked pale as paper. She knew they were losing. During a recess, Caroline took my hand. "You're stronger than I ever imagined," she whispered. I smiled faintly. "I have to be," I replied. Inside, though, a storm raged. How could I still love my son and hate what he'd become all at once? The final ruling was postponed to the following week, giving us time to solidify the case. That night, as I returned to Mr. Harris's house, I found an envelope slipped under the door. No name, no return address. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single photograph. Daniel, standing with a man I didn't recognize, shaking hands over what looked like stacks of cash. On the back, there was a handwritten note. "You think you know the whole truth. Don't. Follow the money, Eleanor. Or you'll regret it." My heart pounded. Someone else was involved. Someone pulling strings behind Daniel. But who? And why now? The next day, the private investigator confirmed my worst fear. Daniel was working with a loan shark, a dangerous man who had been threatening him to pay back huge debts. This man was the one pushing Daniel to do unthinkable things, like getting rid of me to secure money fast. But the investigator warned me, "Mrs. Hayes, this man isn't someone you want to mess with. He'll come after anyone who stands in his way." That night, a black car parked outside Mr. Harris's house. The engine idled for hours. Every instinct told me danger was near. I closed the curtains and gripped the phone, ready to call the police. My heart thudded in my chest as the car finally drove away, but I knew this wasn't over. The following morning, I met with Mrs. Whitman and told her everything. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "Eleanor, this is bigger than a family betrayal now. This is criminal. We need protection." We arranged security, but the threats kept coming. Anonymous calls, broken glass near the driveway, letters telling me to drop the charges or else. The fear was real, but so was my determination. I wouldn't be silenced. Days before the final court ruling, Daniel requested to see me privately. Against my better judgment, I agreed, meeting him in a secure room at the jail. He looked nothing like the son I remembered. His eyes hollow, his face hardened. "Mom," he said quietly, "if you keep pushing this, they'll kill you. These people I owe. They don't play games." I leaned forward, my voice like steel. "Then why bring them into our lives, Daniel? Why drag me into your mess?" Tears welled in his eyes. "Because I was stupid. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could fix it. But I can't. Please, just walk away. Save yourself." For a brief moment, I almost softened. But then I remembered the attic, the hunger, the cold laughter downstairs. "No, Daniel," I said firmly. "I won't walk away. I'm taking back everything you tried to steal from me. And I'll make sure those men go down too." He slammed his fists on the table, shouting, "You don't understand. They'll come after you." I stood, my voice unwavering. "Let them try." As I walked out, I felt eyes watching me from the hallway. A man in a dark suit stood by the exit, his gaze cold and unblinking. He nodded slightly, as if warning me. Who was he? And how deep did this go? The final court hearing was just days away, and now it wasn't just about taking back my fortune. It was about survival. To be continued in the next chapter. Evil grows when you let fear silence you. No matter how dark the threats, standing up for yourself is the only way to reclaim your life. The danger is closing in, and the final showdown is near. What will happen at the court? Will Eleanor survive the threats against her? Stay tuned for the next chapter. Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next twist. The morning of the final court hearing arrived, and the air felt heavy with dread. I barely slept the night before. The man in the dark suit who watched me outside the jail haunted my thoughts. His cold stare lingered in my dreams like a warning I couldn't shake. Still, I got dressed in my strongest armor. Not steel but dignity. I wore my late husband's favorite brooch, the one he said made me look unstoppable. When I stepped out of Mr. Harris's house, I noticed something chilling. The same black car that had followed me before was parked across the street. Its windows were tinted so dark I couldn't see who was inside. I called out to Mr. Harris, who came out holding his phone ready to dial the police. But before he could, the car slowly drove away, tires crunching against the gravel. "They're watching you," he said, his voice tight with worry. "I know," I replied. "And that means they're scared." At the courthouse, the tension was suffocating. Mrs. Whitman was already there, papers neatly stacked, evidence ready to crush every defense Daniel might have. Caroline sat in the front row, her presence a quiet pillar of strength. But then, just as the proceedings were about to begin, the man in the dark suit walked in and took a seat at the very back. My blood ran cold. The hearing started with the prosecution laying out every piece of evidence: bank records, witness testimonies, the attempted murder, the offshore accounts. Daniel sat at the defense table, his hands clenched, sweat glistening on his forehead. He looked broken, but there was still defiance in his eyes. As the judge reviewed the documents, the man in the back stood up suddenly. "Your Honor," he said, his voice deep and commanding, "I have information that will affect this case." The courtroom erupted in gasps. The judge banged his gavel, demanding order. The man walked to the front, producing a folder. "My name is Victor Shaw. I am here on behalf of individuals owed a significant debt by Mr. Daniel Hayes. Your Honor, this man's actions were not only criminal but under coercion from people who demanded repayment. However, I have proof that Daniel willingly collaborated with us to defraud his mother even after the debts were cleared." Every word from Victor Shaw's mouth felt like a dagger. He wasn't protecting Daniel. He was burying him. The documents he handed over were damning. Contracts, signed agreements, even recordings of Daniel bragging about how he would get rid of the old woman and take everything. Daniel's face went pale. He slammed his fists on the table. "You set me up. You promised." Victor leaned close to him and whispered something no one else could hear. Whatever it was, it drained the last bit of fight from Daniel's eyes. The judge reviewed the new evidence, and it sealed Daniel's fate. The ruling was swift. Daniel was found guilty on all counts: attempted murder, fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. He was sentenced to years in prison with no chance of early release. Kelly, caught in the fraud, was sentenced as well. I thought the nightmare was over, but as I walked out of the courtroom, Victor Shaw approached me. His presence was overwhelming, his eyes sharp as knives. "You should know," he said quietly. "We're done with Daniel. But some of the people he owed are not done with you. They see you as leverage. Be careful, Mrs. Hayes. My knees almost buckled. Why are you warning me? Asked. He smirked faintly. Because I respect strength. And you're stronger than most. Then he walked away, disappearing into the crowd like a shadow. The warning echoed in my head all night. The threats weren't gone, they had only changed shape. But I refused to live in fear. I took legal control of everything Daniel had stolen, reclaiming my house, my money, my life. I reinforced security around my property, and with Caroline's help, I started making moves to protect myself even further. Days later, I received a package at my doorstep. No name, no return address. Inside was a burned photo of me and Daniel when he was a little boy. His face blackened out. Alongside it was a single note. We're not finished. I felt the blood drain from my face. Whoever sent this wasn't bluffing. They were coming. And then, one stormy night, I woke to the sound of footsteps in my house. Low. Deliberate. Each creak of the floorboards sent shivers down my spine. I grabbed the phone to call the police, but before I could dial, the power went out. The darkness swallowed the room, and the footsteps grew closer. Eleanor! A voice hissed from the shadows. Froze. Who was inside my house? And what did they want? To be continued in the next chapter. Even when you win against evil, it doesn't mean the fight is over. True strength is in standing your ground, no matter how many storms come your way. Someone has broken into Eleanor's house, and danger is at her doorstep. Who is it? What do they want? Don't miss the next chapter. Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next shocking turn. The house was pitch black, the storm outside rattling the windows. My heart pounded so hard it almost drowned out the sound of the slow, deliberate footsteps creeping closer. I stood frozen in the living room, clutching the phone in one hand and a heavy candlestick in the other. Who's there? I demanded, my voice shaking but loud enough to cut through the silence. No response. Only the sound of someone breathing. The footsteps stopped, and for a moment I thought maybe I had imagined it. Then, from the corner of the room, a figure emerged slowly into the faint glow of lightning flashing through the window. It wasn't Victor Shaw. It wasn't Daniel. It was a stranger, tall, hooded, his face hidden in shadow. "Leave my house," I said, raising the candlestick like a weapon. He chuckled softly. "You're brave, Mrs. Hayes. I see why Victor respects you. But respect doesn't change the fact that you have something that belongs to us." My grip tightened. "You mean the money Daniel stole?" "It's mine. It was always mine." The man stepped closer, and I could smell the scent of rain and cigarette smoke clinging to his jacket. "You've taken back what should have been payment. That makes you our problem now." Lightning cracked, and in that brief flash I saw his eyes. Cold, calculating. I swung the candlestick, narrowly missing his head as he jumped back with a laugh. "Feisty old lady," he sneered. "But you can't fight us forever." Before he could advance again, headlights flooded the driveway. The man cursed under his breath and bolted toward the back door, disappearing into the storm just as Mr. Harris burst in, shouting my name. I collapsed into his arms, shaking. "He was here," I whispered. "Someone from Daniel's world. They want the money." The police arrived minutes later, combing through the house but finding no trace of the intruder. The only evidence left behind was a wet footprint near the back door and a small folded note on the kitchen table. It read, "Next time you won't be so lucky." That night, the fear I had been holding back flooded over me. This wasn't over. They weren't going to stop. But as much as I wanted to run, I knew I had to stand my ground. This was my house, my life, and I wasn't giving either up. The next morning, I met with Mrs. Whitman and Caroline to discuss what happened. Mrs. Whitman insisted on filing for police protection, while Caroline suggested hiring private security. "You can't fight these men alone, Eleanor," she said firmly. "I won't," I replied, my voice steady. "But I'm not running either. If they want a fight, they'll get one." Over the next few days, the house was fortified with alarms, cameras, and guards patrolling the perimeter. I should have felt safe, but I knew this was only buying me time. The man in the hood had made it clear. They wanted more than money. They wanted control. Then came a surprise I wasn't expecting. Victor Shaw called me personally. His voice was calm, almost amused. "Mrs. Hayes, I heard about last night. You've made enemies with dangerous people. But you also have something they fear. You have the power to expose them. And I can help you, for a price." Every instinct screamed not to trust him, but I knew I had to play this game carefully. "What do you want?" I asked. "A simple exchange," he said smoothly. "You give me access to certain documents Daniel left behind, and I'll make sure these men stay far away from you. Consider it protection." It was a dangerous offer, and I didn't know if accepting it would save me or destroy me. Still, I agreed to meet him the following evening, in a public place where I wouldn't be easily cornered. That evening I went through Daniel's old files, finding something shocking: records of payments, names, and transactions linked to powerful people. It wasn't just criminals. There were politicians, businessmen, people with influence who had dirt that could ruin them. No wonder they wanted me gone. I packed the documents carefully, my hands trembling. I was stepping into a world of danger I barely understood, but one thing was clear: I had leverage now. The next night I met Victor Shaw in a small, quiet cafe on the edge of town. He looked at the envelope I slid across the table and smiled. "Smart woman. With this, I can keep them at bay." But as he stood to leave, he leaned down and whispered in my ear, "You've just made yourself more valuable than you know. That's both good and bad." Before I could respond, he walked out, disappearing into the night. The following day things seemed calm, almost too calm. No threats, no black cars, no strange calls. I almost allowed myself to breathe, until the phone rang. When I picked it up, a voice I didn't recognize said coldly, "You shouldn't have given him those documents. Now we're coming for you." The line went dead. That night the power went out again. And this time I heard not one set of footsteps, but several. They were inside the house. To be continued in the next chapter. Fear only has power if you let it paralyze you. Even when danger grows, courage and preparation can turn the hunted into the hunter. Multiple intruders are now inside Eleanor's home. Will she survive this attack? Will her new leverage save her, or put her in greater danger? Don't miss the next chapter. Like, comment, and subscribe so you're ready for the next shocking twist. The floorboards creaked under the weight of several boots. I stayed completely still in the darkness, my back pressed against the wall, clutching the same heavy candlestick I had used before. My heart thumped so loud I was sure they could hear it. The intruders moved through the house like predators, their whispers cutting through the silence. "She's here somewhere. Check every room." Their voices were low, cold, professional. These weren't petty thieves, they were killers. I crawled on my knees toward the hidden panel in the hallway floor, a small storage space my husband once used to keep old documents. I slipped inside just as a flashlight beam swept across the hallway. My breath caught in my throat. Through a crack in the wood, I saw 3 men, hooded, armed, and moving with precision. One of them kicked open my bedroom door, the crash echoing through the house. "She's not in here," another barked. "Keep looking." I stayed hidden, praying the panel wouldn't give me away. My fingers shook as I dialed 911 on my phone, whispering my address to the operator. "Stay hidden, ma'am," the dispatcher said. "Help is on the way." Minutes felt like hours. The men tore through the house, flipping over furniture, smashing drawers, looking for something. Looking for me. Then one of them stopped just inches from my hiding spot. He crouched down, tapping the wooden floor with his fingers. "What's this?" he muttered. My blood ran cold. The panel creaked slightly as he pressed on it. Just as he was about to rip it open, sirens wailed outside. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. "Cops!" another man shouted. They bolted for the back door, disappearing into the night as police stormed the house. An officer pulled me out of the hiding spot, my body trembling, my voice barely a whisper. They were going to kill me. The house was secured, but the men were gone. Detective Lawson, a tall man with a calm but serious demeanor, questioned me. Mrs. Hayes, these men weren't amateurs. They were sent to send a message. Do you have any idea who might want you dead? I told him everything, from Daniel's debts to the documents, to Victor Shaw and the threats. He nodded slowly, jotting down notes. Whoever is behind this isn't just a loan shark. This is organized crime. You're in the middle of something bigger than you realize. The police insisted I leave the house temporarily, placing me under protective watch in a secure location. Mr. Harris came with me, refusing to leave my side. Caroline stayed close too, helping me pack the essentials. While in protective custody, Detective Lawson returned with updates. We traced one of the men to a criminal syndicate involved in money laundering. They want those documents you gave to Shaw. They think you still have copies, and they're not going to stop until they get them. I told Lawson the truth. I did keep copies. My husband had taught me long ago never to give away your only leverage. That decision had saved me before, and it would save me again. Meanwhile, Victor Shaw called me, his voice calm as ever. I warned you, Eleanor. They want you gone. But now that they think you still have what they want, you have the upper hand. Use it. I was tired of running, tired of hiding. I wanted this nightmare to end. So I came up with a plan, dangerous but the only way to finish this. I arranged a meeting with Victor and the syndicate's middleman, pretending I was willing to hand over the remaining documents in exchange for peace. Caroline and Mr. Harris begged me not to go, but I had to. I wasn't just fighting for my fortune anymore. I was fighting for my life. The meeting was set in an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town, the kind of place where deals like this usually end in blood. I arrived with the copies, my heart steady but my hands cold. Victor stood there, calm as ever, while two men from the syndicate approached, their faces hard, their eyes filled with menace. You brought it, one growled. I held up the envelope. It's all here. But if anything happens to me, the originals go straight to the FBI. They froze. They knew I wasn't bluffing. Victor smirked. Smart woman. The man snatched the envelope and began to check the documents. But before he could finish, the sound of helicopters and sirens filled the air. FBI agents stormed the building, shouting commands. The syndicate men dropped their weapons, caught completely off guard. Victor raised his hands slowly, but his eyes met mine with a glint of amusement. You called them, he said softly, almost proud. Yes, I said, my voice unwavering. And you're going down with them. Agents cuffed the criminals, including Victor Shaw, who only chuckled as they led him away. This isn't over, Eleanor. Remember that. The FBI thanked me for helping expose a major criminal network, but deep down, I knew this wasn't just about the law. This was personal. When I finally returned to my house, it felt different. No longer a place of fear, but of victory. Yet a part of me knew the fight wasn't completely over. Victor's words echoed in my mind. Days later, I received a letter from prison. It was from Daniel. His handwriting was shaky. Mom, I know I've done unforgivable things. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But please, come see me. There's something you need to know. Something that could change everything. My hands trembled as I read it. What could Daniel possibly have left to say? To be continued in the next chapter. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward even when fear is all you feel. When you hold your ground, evil eventually collapses under its own weight. Daniel has one last secret that could change everything. What is he hiding? Don't miss the next chapter. Like, comment, and subscribe so you're ready for the next shocking reveal. I sat in my car outside the prison for several minutes, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The gray building loomed ahead, surrounded by barbed wire and guards. Every instinct told me to turn around and leave, but something in my gut said Daniel's letter wasn't just an attempt for pity. It was a warning. When I finally walked inside, the guard led me to the visitation room. Daniel was already there, sitting behind the glass. He looked thinner, older, and the arrogance he once wore like armor was gone. When our eyes met, he lowered his head. "Mom," he said softly, picking up the phone on his side of the glass. I hesitated before lifting mine. "Why did you ask me to come, Daniel?" He took a deep breath. "Because they're not done. You think the FBI arresting Victor Shaw and those men ended this? Didn't. There's someone bigger than Shaw, someone they all answer to. They call him the broker. And he's coming for you." My stomach clenched. Why would he come after me now? The documents are gone. The syndicate is finished. Daniel shook his head. "No, Mum. The broker doesn't care about the documents anymore. He cares about revenge. You embarrassed him by helping the FBI. And he doesn't forgive. Ever." I felt my heart drop. "How do you know all this?" Daniel leaned closer to the glass. "Because I worked for him before all this started. He's the one who lent me the money, who pushed me into trying to take everything from you. I thought I was in control, but I wasn't. I was just his pawn." Tears stung my eyes. "Why didn't you tell me this before? You could have warned me." "I was scared," he whispered. "But I don't want you to die because of me. You have to leave. Disappear. Change your name if you have to. It's the only way you'll be safe." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I searched his face for the boy I raised, the boy who once loved me. For the first time in years, I saw a glimmer of remorse. "I can't run," I said finally, my voice steady. "I've spent my whole life building what's mine. I won't hide from anyone, not anymore." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "Then promise me you'll be careful. Please, Mom." I hung up the phone and walked away, my heart heavy but my resolve stronger than ever. When I returned home, Caroline was waiting. I told her everything. She looked at me with a mix of fear and determination. "Eleanor, if this broker is as powerful as Daniel says, we need help. Real help." That night I contacted Detective Lawson. He arranged for federal agents to increase security around my house, but even he admitted, "If this man is who I think he is, he'll find a way to get to you." The following evening, the storm rolled in again. Lightning cracked across the sky as the power flickered. I sat in the living room, a cup of tea trembling in my hands. Mr. Harris and Caroline stayed with me, refusing to leave me alone. Then the phone rang. I answered, my voice trembling. "Mrs. Hayes," a deep, calm voice said. "You've caused me quite a headache." It was him. The broker. "You think you've won," he continued, "but all you've done is provoke me. I don't need documents to destroy you. I only need time. And time is something I have plenty of." My throat tightened. "What do you want from me?" A chilling laugh echoed through the line. "I want you to suffer. Just like you made me suffer when you exposed my network. You'll watch everything you love burn, piece by piece, until there's nothing left." The line went dead. That same night, an explosion rocked the back of my property. The old shed went up in flames, lighting the sky red. We barely escaped the fire, coughing from the smoke as firefighters battled the blaze. The broker had made his first move. Detective Lawson arrived, furious. "This is war now," he said. "And we're not letting him win." I stood there watching the fire die down, the flames reflecting in my eyes. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was angry. The next day, I contacted the FBI directly, giving them every detail I had on the broker. They promised to investigate, but I knew this man wouldn't be easy to catch. He was a ghost in the shadows. That night, I sat by my window, staring out into the darkness. Somewhere out there he was watching, waiting. But so was I. As the clock struck midnight, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was a photo of Caroline tied to a chair, gagged, her eyes wide with terror. Below it was a single line. "Your move, Eleanor." My breath caught in my throat. They had taken her. I gripped my phone so tightly it almost cracked. The fear in me burned away, replaced by a cold determination. They had declared war on me, and now I was going to end it. To be continued in the next chapter. When evil takes what you love, you can either crumble or rise. Strength isn't about never being afraid. It's about fighting through fear for those who matter most. Caroline has been kidnapped, and Eleanor is being pushed to her breaking point. How far will she go to save her family? Don't miss the next chapter. Like, comment, and subscribe so you won't miss the next heart-pounding twist. The photo of Caroline burned into my mind like a brand. Every second felt like an eternity as I stared at the screen, my hands shaking but my resolve hardening. This wasn't just a threat anymore, it was a challenge. The broker had made his move, and now it was my turn. I immediately called Detective Lawson. "They have Caroline," I said, my voice breaking. "They sent me a picture. They want me to play their game." Lawson's tone was urgent. "Eleanor, listen to me. Do not respond to them directly. We'll trace the number and we'll find her." But deep down, I knew this wasn't a game the police could win with rules. The broker played outside the law. He didn't fear badges or warrants. He thrived in the shadows. If I wanted to save Caroline, I had to step into those shadows myself. Minutes later, my phone buzzed again. A new message appeared. "Meet me alone. Tonight. Bring no one. You have until midnight or she dies." Attached was an address to an abandoned shipping yard outside town. I showed the message to Lawson, and he immediately wanted to send a SWAT team. "We can't negotiate with these people," he said. "No," I replied, my voice steady. "If they see the police, they'll kill her. I have to do this my way." Against his protests, I prepared myself. I wasn't going empty-handed. Hidden inside my coat was a small recording device, and in my pocket, I carried the final copy of the documents, my last piece of leverage. I also took a small revolver, an old relic my husband once kept locked away. My hands trembled as I loaded it, but my heart was fierce. When the clock neared midnight, I drove alone to the shipping yard. The air was thick with mist, the ground wet from the evening rain. My headlights cut through the fog as I pulled up to the meeting spot, a single flickering light above a rusted warehouse door. As soon as I stepped out of the car, a voice echoed from the shadows. "Leave the gun in the car, Mrs. Hayes. You won't need it." Froze. They were watching me. Slowly, I placed the revolver back inside the vehicle, keeping the recording device hidden. The warehouse door creaked open and I stepped inside. The smell of oil and rust filled the air. Caroline was there, tied to a chair, her eyes wide with fear. She let out a muffled cry when she saw me. From the darkness, a man stepped forward. Tall, dressed in a tailored black suit. His presence radiated power. His face was calm, almost charming, but his eyes were dead, cold as ice. "So," he said smoothly, "you're the woman who thinks she can outplay me." "The broker," I whispered. He smiled faintly. "I must admit, you've caused me quite a mess. You took down my men, exposed my network, even had Victor arrested. Impressive. But now you've left me no choice." My voice was steady, even as fear coiled in my stomach. "Let her go. This is between you and me." He chuckled. "Oh, Eleanor, you still don't understand. This was never just about money. It's about power. You humiliated me, and now I'll take everything that matters to you." I took a step forward, holding up the envelope. "You want this, don't you? The last copy of the documents. You'll never touch me or my family again if you want it." His eyes narrowed. "You think I'll bargain with you?" "Yes," I said boldly. "Because if anything happens to Caroline, the FBI gets a copy that will destroy every last one of your operations. You kill us, and you go down with us." For a moment he was silent, his jaw clenched. Then slowly he smiled. "You've got fire. I like that." He motioned for one of his men to untie Caroline. She ran to me, trembling, clutching my arm like a lifeline. But as we turned to leave, the broker spoke again, his tone dripping with venom. "Go ahead, Eleanor. Enjoy your little victory. But remember this, people like me don't lose. We wait. We watch. And one day, when you least expect it, I'll take everything from you. I glared at him, my voice steady. Not if I take you down first. With Caroline at my side, I walked out of that warehouse, the recording device capturing every word of the broker's threats. As soon as we reached the car, I handed the device to Detective Lawson, who had been secretly tracking me with a GPS he placed in my car earlier. SWAT teams swarmed the yard within minutes, engaging in a chaotic standoff with the broker's men. Gunfire erupted, and in the confusion, the broker vanished into the night like smoke. Caroline was safe, but the war wasn't over. The broker had escaped, and he would come back. The FBI moved us into a high-security safe house, where agents worked tirelessly to hunt him down. Still, every creak at night kept me awake. Every shadow made my heart race. I knew he was out there watching, waiting. Then days later news came. The broker's empire had crumbled. Most of his network had been dismantled. His assets frozen. But he himself remained at large, a ghost slipping through the cracks. That night, I stood at the window of the safe house, staring out into the darkness. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt the storm brewing again. My phone buzzed. A single text appeared. "See you soon." My blood turned to ice. The final battle wasn't over. It was only beginning. To be continued in the next chapter. True evil doesn't always die when you win a battle. Sometimes it lingers, forcing you to stay strong long after the fight ends. The broker has escaped, and the final showdown is approaching. Will Eleanor finally defeat him and reclaim her peace? Don't miss the explosive conclusion in the next chapter. Like, comment, and subscribe so you won't miss the finale. The message, "See you soon," haunted me through the night. Sleep became impossible. Every tick of the clock sounded like a countdown to something inevitable. I knew the broker was out there, and this time he wouldn't play games. He wanted me dead. But I was no longer the fragile old woman he expected. I was ready to end this. The FBI wanted to relocate me again, but I refused. "I won't live the rest of my life running," I told Detective Lawson. "I'll lure him out, and this ends on my terms." Lawson hesitated but eventually agreed. Together we created a plan, a trap to draw the broker in and capture him once and for all. Using the last piece of bait I had left, I leaked false information through a secure channel, letting it appear as though I was transferring the original documents to a secret location. It was dangerous, but it was the only way to force him out of hiding. The location we chose was my house, the same place where this nightmare began. Federal agents disguised themselves as workers, wiring the entire property with surveillance cameras, microphones, and silent alarms. Snipers positioned themselves on nearby rooftops, and agents hid in unmarked vehicles along the street. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I sat alone in my living room. Caroline was safe under protection, and Mr. Harris stayed in a secure location. It was just me, and the darkness that crept closer with every passing hour. Around midnight, the front door creaked open slowly. I gripped the revolver hidden in my lap. A shadow stepped inside, moving with silent confidence. The broker. He wasn't hiding now. He stood tall, his face calm, his suit immaculate despite the storm raging outside. "You really are fearless, Mrs. Hayes," he said with a smirk. "But bravery won't save you tonight." "You talk too much," I replied coldly. "This ends now." He chuckled. "Do you really think you can stop me? I've walked away from bigger traps than this." "Not this one," I said, pressing the panic button hidden beneath the armrest of my chair. Instantly, floodlights burst through the windows, and agents stormed the house from every angle. The broker drew a gun, firing at the agents, but he was outnumbered. A sniper's shot shattered his weapon, and he dropped it as the agents tackled him to the ground. For the first time, I saw fear flash in his cold eyes. Even pinned down, he sneered at me. "You think this changes anything? There will always be someone like me. You'll never truly be safe." I stepped closer, looking him dead in the eye. "Maybe. But you won't be one of them." The agents dragged him away, his shouts echoing through the night. As the police cars disappeared, a wave of relief washed over me. For the first time in months I could breathe. Days later, I testified against the broker in court, providing all the evidence needed to lock him away for life. The judge's gavel came down with finality. Justice was served. Daniel, still serving his sentence, wrote me another letter. This time it wasn't an apology, it was gratitude. He thanked me for surviving, for not giving up on life even when he had given up on me. I cried as I read it, not because I forgave him completely, but because maybe there was still hope for the boy I once knew. With the broker gone and the syndicate dismantled, I finally returned home for good. The scars of the past remained, but they no longer defined me. My house, once a place of fear, became a symbol of my survival. One evening, as the sun set and the golden light spilled across my porch, I sat with Caroline and Mr. Harris, sipping tea. "It's over," Caroline said softly. I smiled faintly. "Yes. And I'm still standing." I had lost so much, but I had gained something far more valuable. Strength, resilience, and the knowledge that even in the darkest moments, the human spirit can rise above anything. I turned to Caroline and Mr. Harris. "Do you know what I've learned through all this?" Caroline tilted her head. "What's that?" "That evil may try to break you, but as long as you refuse to bend, you win." I didn't just survive, I took everything back. As the night settled peacefully over my home, I finally felt free. No more shadows, no more fear. Just life, precious, unbroken, and mine. No matter how powerful evil seems, it only wins if you let it. True strength lies in refusing to give up, in standing firm when the world tries to break you. Thank you for staying with me through this incredible journey. If Eleanor's story of survival and triumph moved you, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Remember, your strength is greater than any storm.